All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Firewise Coalition meeting. It is October 6, 2020. My name is Caleb Dardick. I'm a project administrator in Nevada County CO's office, and pleased to welcome all of you to tonight's Zoom meeting, which will be chaired by Bob Long. Bob, take it away.
Thank you very much. So just a reminder again that we do record this, so please check your background, make sure nothing's happening back there. You don't want to get fired from your job. Again, our usual reminders, I'll keep them brief. This is the time to be taking responsibility and make sure your go bag is ready. Unfortunately, some of you, I haven't had to do it, have already had to use their go bag. I hope that, I sincerely hope that none of us have to experience that again. Just again, our reminder to please make sure everybody you know is signed up for Code Red. And again, another reminder that if an event happens or if you're curious about an event that's occurring within Nevada County, call 211. Do not call 911. That's for emergencies only. 211 is manned during emergencies, and the EOC is directly in contact with 211, and they do have the latest information of what's going on. So be sure to use those resources and keep 911 free. And if you haven't got evacuation tags yet, you need to get to the nearest fire station or go to the sheriff's office and get those evacuation tags. The safety officers are looking for them. They are saving a lot of time during an evacuation. It saves deputies a ton of time. And I was out on a Defensible Space advisory visit again last week and had to remind the landowner, the homeowner, to get an address sign. There's still a lot of people out there that don't have address signs, and they are available at the Fire Safe Council. They're $45. You just go on the website, drop down to the link that lets you order a sign, get that sign. It's what safety officers are looking for. They're looking for that reflective sign that the Fire Safe Council makes available. And then the last reminder I have is that Susan and I end our tenure as officers at the coalition, and we are looking for volunteers to take our place. We promise that we're not leaving. We do promise that we'll form a committee that will be behind you to help you with emails, phone calls, agenda items, and other work as necessary. We just would like someone else to be the talking head. I would like someone else to be the talking head on this event. And
we go through December. I'm not sure you mentioned
December.
That.
December is our last meeting.
This would be starting January. We
Yeah.
need people to, if you want the coalition to keep going, we need people to identify themselves to help with that. Thank you.
And just to encourage you to think about it so you don't hear any more bad jokes, I think everybody's heard about the historical figure Karl Marx, but no one's ever acknowledged his sister, Anya, who developed the starter pistol. Okay.
Oh, no.
And then let's see this is we're into Halloween, and so I do need to ask the question. I don't know if Jim is on the line, if he's listening, but what do witches put in their hair? Scare spray. All right, enough. If that doesn't incentivize you to find another chair for this organization, I'll just try to do better in November. Okay, so Jim, are you out there? I don't see who's participants, who's here.
I don't see him on the
anybody
on the participant list yet. Maybe he's coming in a little late.
Oops, come on. Oh, Paul,
Bob,
I see
I think
Paul.
Jim might be out of town, so if somebody from CAL FIRE doesn't chime in, I think he is out of town. So.
Okay, well, Paul, why don't you go ahead and give us the latest from OES?
Sure. And I've also got Lieutenant Jacobs on here with me, so I will turn it over to him as well. But 2 public safety power shutoff events in September. Those were small scale. Like PG&E promised, they'd be shorter in duration and smaller in scale. So that seemed to go okay from our perspective. We did have the EOC opened for those, and thankfully no fires kicked off. We have been seeing some small fires in the county. Thankfully, they've stayed small. So thanks to the work that your group's doing here and many of the residents are doing. So just as you've already stated, continue to be ready, and hopefully we have a quiet remainder of our wildfire season. Let's see, what else did I have? Just as an update for the rest of the county, the Jones Fire, we were approved for a FEMA declaration for that. So I think it's important to talk about the recovery process, just from the OES perspective, that we're very focused on readiness, but it's just good to know that our neighbors up there in that Jones Fire area that did have losses, the Independence Trail, the Woolman School, there should be some FEMA dollars and state dollars to help with debris removal and recovery there. So that's big news that we've been working on here in our office. The last thing I've got, and I see that Sheila Cameron is on, is that, and I'll probably turn it over to her for greater details, but we did mention the OES video that we're putting together. That's going to be around a 25 to 30 minute video that focuses on readiness that we want to be able to show to a broad audience. And we're looking for volunteers from the community that have a story about how they faced the readiness challenge and they overcame it, maybe an evacuation story. You don't have to be an expert on wildfire or readiness or preparedness. I think we want to hear those experts or those perspectives as well. So Sheila, could you tell everyone a little bit more about what we're looking for from our community?
Yeah, hi Paul, hi everyone. The concept really is we'd like to create like a tight, concise, interesting, engaging product that is basically bringing our Ready, Set, Go handbook to life, so that, you know, when we're doing community outreach, it's a little bit more engaging than a PowerPoint, and it just conveys the readiness message through collaboration, where regular engaged citizens are as important to our wildfire safety as all of the experts and first responders and organizing entities that take on the big projects. So what we're really looking for are 3 engaged people who worked through the Ready, Set, Go guide. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have the answers. In fact, if you were a little challenged by any of them and you overcame some of those challenges, that's even a better story. And we're also looking for properties. If you've done some home hardening that you're really proud of, if you've done some defensible space that you're really proud of, we're going to have some drone experts doing some drone shots of properties that really are wildfire ready. So fill out the form. I'm going to put the link in the comments. If you have questions, you can put questions in the form at the bottom, or you can email me or Jen Tamo directly.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Lieutenant Jacobs might have an update on Evac Tags 2.0. Are you on, Bob?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. Appreciate you having us on tonight. Yeah, I just have a couple of things for this group tonight. First off, Evacuation Tags. It's been a very popular program, especially after the Jones fire. It really kind of gave that program a shot in the arm. We saw a rapid depletion of our stock, and I was also faced with having to find another vendor. So we've got a local vendor now, and I've submitted the order, and I've been assured that our new evac tags should be in the next week or two. We're giving it a slightly different look. What you're used to is the white background with the solid red that says evacuated and Nevada County Sheriff. After the Jones fire, we received some feedback from some of our first responders that white background wasn't exactly the easiest to see from a distance. So we've gone ahead and we've given the background a really bright yellow color. So instead of a white Tyvek tag, it's now a bright yellow tag. So we're pretty excited about that. As soon as we get those in, 12,000 of them, we're going to go ahead and reach out to all those fire stations and the locations that we have those staged at, make sure that they've got ample supply for the public. And then we'll be reaching out to any of the folks that have contacted us lately about getting bulk orders so that we can make sure that everybody has enough tags to distribute to your Firewise communities, Lake Wildwood, Lake of the Pines, just to name a few that have reached out to us. So appreciate your patience on that. We had a couple of hiccups, but I think we worked through them. So hopefully we'll have that out to you soon. The only other thing I have tonight to talk about is our Defensible Space Inspector Program. We're proud to announce that we've hired 3 additional inspectors. They start on Tuesday, this next Tuesday. That's 2 temporaries and a full-time lead inspector. So that's going to bring our total complement up to 4 employees. We're pretty excited about this. We've pretty much been working with only 1 temporary inspector since before the start of COVID. We lost our full-time inspector and we were down to just the 1 temp. Because of COVID and a number of other variables, it became extremely difficult to recruit quality people and to get those positions filled. It's been a long time coming, and again, we appreciate the public's patience with us. We've got 3 fantastic employees that are coming on board. They're really excited. We've got a training program laid out for them that's going to keep them busy all next week, and we hope to get them into the field in the following week. And we think that this next year is looking really good as far as that. We've got a lot more staff to be able to handle those complaints as they're coming in. And then we want to have a proactive piece to that. We've had a lot of public concern about, why aren't you out being proactive? We want you out there inspecting the roadways and getting people to do the clearances. Well, these additional staff are going to give us that ability, that capacity to do that. So we're pretty excited about that. And hopefully we'll be introducing those folks to the public shortly after they're on. And that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Bob. So just a reminder to everybody, to access the inspectors, you go through the OES on mynevadacounty.com, and you can turn in a request for an inspector, especially if there's a neighbor that you're concerned about. The website has changed a little bit. It now asks you to actually set up an account, but that's really nothing to worry about. It just captures your name and email address. It's not going to be shared with the world. And then that gives you entree to the website to lodge a complaint. And remember that the Fire Safe Council has defensible space advisors, and that's what we are. We're advisors. We don't wear badges and we don't report to anybody. If you request an inspection, then that's what you're going to get. And if there's a problem, a citation would be issued. Advisors don't do that. We simply advise, and you then use common sense to do what you think is best after you get our advice. So just something to think about.
Bob, I have a quick question for Lieutenant Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Susan. I have one of your version 1 evac tags that I got at one of those drive-through food things this summer, but I live in the city of Grass Valley. Have you heard anything recently or more about whether the city of Grass Valley is doing its own evacuation tag program?
I have not heard that they're going to do their own. In
Okay.
fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I dropped off the last of what we had, 600 tags, to the Grass Valley Fire Department, and they were going to take lead in distributing those to their fire engines as well as to the police officers there.
Okay.
Obviously 600 tags sounds like a lot, but when you distribute that amongst a lot of staff, that goes pretty quick. So we're looking forward to being able to give them a lot more tags out of this next stock. But again, I have not heard that they're going to do their own program, but certainly, you know, these tags can be used anywhere in Nevada County just as effective.
Well, sure, yeah. If they're cooperating with you and taking yours, then I'll just keep the one I've got. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't see anybody online from CAL FIRE or Consolidated. So we'll just go to the Fire Safe Council. I saw Don threw you under the bus, Jamie. So he says you have all the information. So are you out there?
I am. Sorry, I am Zooming on my phone with a less than reliable internet connection. So you get voice, and I'm navigating the new format, I guess. So I have lots to report out on. Many of you have noticed Julie Siegenthaler, our program manager, has been really making strides in our DSAV program. They had the first DSAV meeting last month. And the second meeting will take place tomorrow for those advisors that are on that list, or if you're interested, I'm happy to forward that Zoom call out. And it's just going to be a second coming together. We're really revamping the entire DSAV program and training, just a little more robust, and you'll see a new format coming out to kind of meet the demands of COVID-19 and not being able to assemble in large groups. So we will have a webinar series coming out on that shortly, which in the stages of planning right now. But for those advisors who are actively participating and been giving Julie great feedback about the program and how we can make tweaks to make it better for the community, I just want to say thank you for your engagement. It's been really responsive, and Julie's gotten some great data and feedback from you, everyone. In addition to that, she also has our newsletter that she's been working on, our monthly newsletter to the public. And that's got some really great response. We were just looking at some data on that tonight. And so if anybody wants to be involved in that newsletter, you can go to the website and sign up for it, or shoot us an email. We'll be happy to add you to the list if you're not already. And it's just going to be, monthly tips on where we should be at in our fire season or planning for fire season. And so that's been really great to have those extra information pieces and education coming out of the Fire Safe Council. I know it's been a long time goal of ours to make that a monthly item or a monthly communication. And with Julie's help, she's been really successful in making sure that we've launched that. So I want to give kudos to Julie for that. I know she's not on, but she's been extremely helpful with that. As for the Firewise communities, I've been working kind of behind the scenes over the last couple weeks. We're about ready to notify several new Firewise communities that they're about ready to be in the assessment phase. I've been assigning our forester and fire scientist those communities to work on. So there's probably going to be about 10 communities coming out on the list by end of week. And we'll be reaching out to those resident leaders one-on-one so that they can arrange the assessment with those people who do the assessments. On an exciting note, I don't know how many of everyone is involved in the Yuba Bear, what's it called? The Yuba Bear Burn Cooperative, which it initially started as the Prescribed Burn Association. It took on a new name a few months back. They had applied for a grant. Fire Safe Council helped support that application with the California Fire Safe Council, and they have been awarded a grant for $80,000 and some change to purchase the burn equipment and trailer for prescribed burn to be utilized in Nevada County. And in addition to that, there's some monies in there that'll leave Jamie Irvin able to continue to build that program out and bring that education to the community. And then there was funds in there to formulate burn plans under a burn boss and those people that will be managing those burns. So it's really good news. It's a good step forward. I know that there's mixed feelings about prescribed burn, but I think it's one of those tools that can be utilized at the appropriate time and in the appropriate manner. And it's definitely a great maintenance tool for people who've done work on their property. So if you're on that list, you are welcome to reach out to Jamie with more questions on that, Jamie Irvin. I can't speak to it entirely because it really is his show, but I wanted to pass along that information that some more funds were awarded in County of Nevada for the Prescribed Burn Association. Moving on, we are about ready to, as many know, we've been doing the Access and Functional Needs Defensible Space Clearing Program. And that has been funding that was allocated from the County of Nevada. And also we received funding from PG&E to execute access and functional need defensible space clearing for people who are low income, elderly, or disabled. And just to kind of build upon that, the success of that program, we've had really great feedback on that. what we have decided to do from Fire Safe Council is to continue to offer that service to all residents in the community for reduced costs with those same crews. So you'll see a press release and communication coming out shortly regarding the new reduced cost defensible space clearing program. Several people have already requested more information on the website, and I know that it was covered in the Union a few days ago with the Ponderosa article. That was, I believe, October 2nd was the date that article came out. But if you have any more questions about that or have interest in that, please reach out to the office. We'll be happy to answer any questions around that program. And we're really just happy that we can bring the resources that we've built over the last couple of years to, you know, make it available to more residents within the community. So with that, I don't think I have anything additional to add. I don't know how much Dawn threw me under the bus, so maybe there was something else that I was supposed to discuss, but
Jamie, we have a question from Dick Menser asking for an update on the chipping program, please.
So the chipping program is still running in full force, and we're 100% caught up. We've been kind of taking them as they come in with a week or so wait, and it's just been scheduling enough people in one day. Is that the question, is on the timeline of the chipping program?
Dick, do you want to unmute yourself and ask if you have any more questions?
I know that they were out in my neighborhood today, I think it was, or maybe it was even yesterday. And I only turned in the request. I mean, it was just the other day, just less than a week ago. And they were out there right away. And
it looks like I don't see Dick on the participant panel. I'm not sure what happened, but I will email him, Jamie, and let him know that.
Well, do you hear me now?
There. Oh, there you are. Okay, yeah, great. Go ahead, Dick.
Yeah, the question, I was just wondering that we had, I think I had several requests from our development, and I'm just wondering how soon that can happen. In other words, and what we submitted, I think there were a number of people who submitted applications for it, and I'm wondering how available it is right now.
So I was just covering that. I think we're only about a week out right now. And if that's not the case, and we think that perhaps we've gotten bogged down somewhere, we've lost your application. We did switch over a few months ago to the all online request format. We're still taking them manually or mail in the office, but if you think that that's an error and you should have already been serviced, please reach out to us at the office directly, and we can verify those requests usually by last name, unless you guys did an association request.
I think that we were asked to do individual requests and put in that it was a Stonebridge project. But it wasn't a development request for the entire development.
Yeah, so typically the association request is when everyone's doing roadside clearing, and then we'll go through the neighborhood and just do everything alongside the road. But more often than not, people have stuff on their personal property, and then we need to have a request for each address for permission to enter. So I can double check on that for you and reach out to you tomorrow to see where that is in the queue. Do you know if they were trying to reach everybody at the same time, or if there was?
No, I don't. I don't know what has happened in terms of the response to all those requests. So
okay.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm sure it's Dick Menser, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a note of it, and then when I'm back in the office first thing tomorrow, I will pull it up and have our chipping team reach out to you to make sure that we in fact have all of the requests in.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jamie.
Yep.
We appreciate the update. Thank you very much. It was a nice article, by the way, in the paper last week about the Ponderosa fuel break and the work the Fire Safe Council has been doing. Okay, with that, I think we'll launch into the program, and we have two guests with us tonight. And so the first is Brandon Sanders from PG&E, and he has an update on the PSPS program and the changes that PG&E has made in that program. So Brandon, you're up.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening, everyone. Just kind of sorting my screen out here.
I wonder if we need to make Brandon a co-host so he can
He
show
is.
his, but I mean,
He is.
he is? Okay, I don't see it
Well,
there.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
And you
But I
can see
mean-
me as well?
to share your PowerPoint is what I'm thinking.
Susan, I don't think he needs to be a co-host to share. Brandon,
Uh-huh.
you have the ability to share your screen if you want to, right?
Okay, if that's how you've
Sure
set up
do.
the meeting. Okay. Sorry
Yes.
about that.
We are all good. Good evening, folks. My name is Brandon Sanders. I'm the Public Affairs Representative for PG&E covering Sierra Division. I'm going to share with you tonight some information about PG&E's efforts around wildfire safety. Apologize, I'm using my wife's computer because PG&E does not allow us to use Zoom on our company equipment. So this is the presentation. I know it says September 10th. This is the content that was provided to an earlier community meeting that Paul Cummings of OES had invited me to. The information is essentially the same. I mean, we continue to do work and take action on the ground to enhance our wildfire safety and PSPS mitigation efforts. But as opposed to just generating an entirely new slide deck, I thought it best to utilize the one from September 10th just for consistency and messaging. So at PG&E, we open every conversation with a safety discussion. So I just want to let everyone know that we continue to operate in the field under all appropriate COVID precautions. We're very mindful of not only the risk to our employees, but that to our customers. And we're taking steps to ensure that we're being mindful of the COVID situation as we operate out in your neighborhoods. So let's jump right in. This is kind of a high-level overview of the system extent in Nevada County, overlaid with the CPUC's high fire threat district designation. As you can see, Nevada City and Grass Valley and some of the more populous areas of Nevada County are right smack in the middle of what's considered the Tier 3 or the high fire threat district. In terms of summary information, nearly 2/3 of the distribution line miles in Nevada County are in that fire threat district. Nearly all of, 90% of the distribution and 5% of the transmission is in that high fire threat district, which is why we tend to see Nevada County continuously impacted by PSPS events, which I'll get into more detail. 6 substations serving the county. In total, we have about 43,000 customers. That's not individuals, of course, that's customers. And 1,800 of those are individuals who are on our medical baseline program, which provides for a discounted electric rate for customers who need some relief from their electric costs due to the need for durable medical equipment. So PG&E has acknowledged that we need to improve on our PSPS program based on experiences from 2018 and 2019, and I think that we're meeting those objectives. You know, we've made commitments before your board of supervisors and city councils and among various community groups that we want these things to be smaller and shorter. We understand the impact, both mentally, financially, and all of those things. And so I think we're meeting that objective this year so far. We've added resources to shorten the duration of the patrols, to restore power. We've done a lot of device installation in Grass Valley and Nevada City to allow us to take a more surgical approach to PSPS implementation. I know specifically that folks in Nevada City benefited greatly from recent actions taken by PG&E to mitigate PSPS impacts to the historic downtown and the Seven Hills Business District. Additionally, we just want to be generally smarter about how we deploy PSPS, and that includes a number of efforts, the installation of new weather and fire camera equipment. We've improved our meteorology resources and greatly enhanced our capabilities in that space. And we're doing a lot also just in terms of customer support, and I'll get into further detail on this as we go. One thing I will say is if anyone has questions as we walk through all this, just let me know or drop something into the chat. So this is just a illustration of all of the various COVID considerations we're taking into account as we operate day to day. We are coordinating with, of course, the medical professionals through their various associations, working closely with local governments, whether that be OES, city governments, county administrative officials, and all the like. We're very much engaged with our medical baseline customers and very focused on providing support where we can to our access and functional needs population, working closely with Freed through a grant to the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. We're doing a lot around community resource centers. I'll be interested if anyone has perspective, having maybe visited one of those recently. I know you all were probably impacted at one point or another. We have new essentially microgrid solutions in place at both the Grass Valley and Brunswick substations. So that's really positive. And so these are just kind of some of the additional mitigation actions we're taking to lessen the impact. I'm going to move this over here. So this is essentially a report card from PG&E as to what we've accomplished this year. We added 2 additional weather stations, 1 additional fire camera. This says we have 3 community resource centers ready, but we actually have up to 15 sites, including contractual arrangements with the county for some indoor locations. In recent events, we have, as a company, have taken the approach that we're going to do these outdoors, given COVID. The last thing we want is to have a PSPS event that we acted upon and then have an indoor facility that causes a COVID resurgence. So we're trying to be mindful of that. We've done a lot around system hardening, a little bit behind, but I think this number is actually, that 12 miles should be closer to 30 now, based on work that we've completed in the last month between Grass Valley and Nevada City. We've installed over a dozen sectionalizing devices. I've got a slide that'll illustrate that. We have 3 microgrids, which is one of the highest numbers of any county in our service territory. And as I'm sure you're all likely aware, we are doing a lot around vegetation management throughout your county as well. This is an overview of the system extent here. So as you can see, you've got coming out of the Beale Air Force Base area, you've got your primary transmission feed coming in, as well as one coming in from the Colgate area. That all comes down into Grass Valley area and is distributed throughout the county. You also have the substations up on the summit that serve the Soda Springs area, which kind of straddles, as you know, the Nevada County, Placer County border. And one thing a lot of folks don't realize is that we actually have fixed generation in place in Washington, simply because during winter events, access can be very challenging and they can experience long duration outages. And so we've done the installation of generation in Washington, as well as Downeyville and Sierra City in Sierra County. So this is a really good example of the work we're doing to lessen the impact from PSPS to the communities we serve. This is an illustration that sort of comes from the eastern edge of Grass Valley up and through downtown Nevada City, up into the Rood Center, the Nevada County Government Center. We've installed devices, we've done enhanced vegetation management, and a number of other things to mitigate PSPS impacts to downtown Nevada City, which came to fruition. Very proud to report on that. That was a big, heavy lift by the team. It was something we heard loud and clear from the city and county they wanted us to achieve for this year, and we did that. But this is one of the big, probably one of the higher profile PSPS mitigation efforts across the entire service territory, really, if you look at it from an internal PG&E perspective. This is the illustration of the work I'm sure you've all heard about. We have an enhanced vegetation management scope on the northern and eastern side of Nevada City. This is going to allow us to do a number of things. One is to mitigate some readily apparent hazard trees in that location. We have trees in that area that are in close enough proximity to the conductor that a person can climb them and literally reach out and grab the wire. That's not acceptable. We understand these trees are very important to the community, and we are meeting with the Save Nevada County Trees organization, as well as the city and county at regular intervals, doing our best to find a mutually agreeable result. But at the end of the day, you know, PG&E, whether it's a high risk of failure or a low risk of failure, the consequences are always severe, and we have to acknowledge that and accept that as our reality. And so we're going to do the work we need to do to render those areas safe. Oh, sorry, my daughter's trying to come outside. Not right now, sweetie. So this is we've improved the services or enhanced the services and offerings that we provided our community resource centers. So instead of just a place to sit and charge your phone, we're now offering things such as basic sustenance, air conditioning, security. We're providing batteries and, you know, various sort of to-go bags, if you will, that provide folks with things that might help them get through a PSPS situation more comfortably. And again, I spoke to the fact that we did outdoor CRCs during this last couple events. That's based on the COVID consideration, but we do have indoor facilities ready to go as well. And we're going as far as to pay for the installation of transfer switches and the placement of generators at those sites to allow for some continuity or normalcy for those affected by PSPS in the future. One thing that was kind of interesting that we saw in the Jones fire that I just thought I'd share with folks is PG&E now has basically our own firefighting crews. And so while they're not going direct on fire, they're doing infrastructure protection and you know, fuels mitigation in advance of a fire's approach. So these are our safety and infrastructure protection teams. These are union represented IBEW employees. They're going out pre-treating poles, removing vegetation at the base of poles, in concert, of course, with incident command on any given event. We're very much, you know, staying in our lane as far as, you know, working within the governance structure and the incident command protocols. But you can see there's an illustration here of us doing some veg clearing around the pole base and then spraying them with retardant. Spraying the poles with retardant is actually highly effective, and it's saved not only a lot of our equipment, but it's saved a lot of costs for ratepayers in terms of wildfire recovery. So we have safety and infrastructure protection teams, or SIPTs, staged throughout the service territory. They have been very busy, as I'm sure you can all imagine. We've been pretty lucky in Nevada and where I live here in Placer County to not have been facing a catastrophic wildfire to the scale that we've seen elsewhere. But this just kind of gives you some detail on these individuals. They're trained firefighters. They work on a type 6 piece of equipment that has a retardant tank and all the appropriate suppression equipment. So on a routine day-to-day, these individuals are doing fire protection for our operational teams. So if we're doing hot work is what they call it, where we're working on an energized line, they will be on site to provide fire protection if there were to be an incident. They're doing a lot of medical response stuff for some of our larger transmission scale projects, if you will. They're patrolling, they're doing fuel hazard abatement, and they're also just providing storm support is another thing that they'll be doing, particularly in the off season. During an emergency situation, they're going to be out there with their retardant trucks, spraying poles, coordinating closely with our public safety specialists who liaise with CAL FIRE or the Forest Service, depending on the nature of the event. They're working to clean up damaged assets. And then, of course, they also provide assistance during PSPS as far as real-time weather observations from the field. So I'll close with this slide here. This is just we have a ton of great information on our website. I'm sure you're all keenly aware of that. Would love for you to, you know, share these websites freely with your communities. I know that you all represent a pretty diverse cross-section of communities in Nevada County. There's just a lot of really good information here, and I would just, you know, ask that you share these freely. And I guess I'll go ahead and end there, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Brandon, there is we have two questions in the chat. One asks if PG&E is using artificial intelligence for system data monitoring.
Wow, that's a really good question. I think we're just using a lot of really smart people. No, I'm kidding. I don't know exactly what that would involve. I mean, we have our grid control center in Rockland. It's a state-of-the-art facility. I've been there once. I felt very out of my league when I walked in there. I would imagine there's, I have to say that we're employing the latest and greatest technology, but I'm sorry, I can't really say that we're using AI.
Okay.
I don't really know. I'm sorry.
Thank you. A question from Ray Briers. He says, I believe that $1 per month of all PG&E bills goes to undergrounding lines. Are you able to specify areas in Nevada County where we have benefited from this?
Sure, absolutely. So there's conversations right now with Nevada City and the County of Nevada to advance on an undergrounding project there in historic downtown. So yes, so $1 of every PG&E bill goes to what's called the Rule 20A program. So if you live within a city, the city gets that dollar, or your unincorporated county, the county gets that dollar. One project I can point to is down, I believe, in, I think it's Lake of the Pines. There was a very large undergrounding project that was recently completed there. I don't have the exact location, but my understanding is it was along Combi Road. And just based on just peripheral knowledge of it, that was a pretty significant project. We've done a lot of undergrounding historically in Nevada City, and they have, I think, about 700,000 in their account, and they're looking to take additional credits, possibly based on their negotiations with the county. The county has an account. I think they're trying to supplement what the city has with what the county has, but I don't have real clear visibility into that. But yes, there's definitely funding available. And there's been a number of instances of undergrounding projects in Nevada County.
Okay, thank you. Questioner has asked if there's a way that they could get a copy of all the slides in your presentation. This is being recorded and it'll be on our website, but I think this person is asking specifically about your PowerPoint.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. I mean, it's in the public domain, obviously, in this meeting and all my other meetings. So yeah, happy to do that. Should I send that to Bob, or how should I do that?
Well, you might be able to upload it right into the chat. You could try that.
Okay.
In a little chat box. If that doesn't work, yes, send it to Bob, and we can put it on our website. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Oh, and somebody wants to know, can you explain what a microgrid is?
Yes. As a public affairs professional and not an electrical engineer, to be clear. But essentially for Nevada County, what that looks like is we have transmission sources that come into the substations. These are extremely high voltage, 60,000 volts or above. And once it gets to the substation, it's broken down into lower voltages and distributed across the distribution system. So what happens in a PSPS is we de-energize, not every time, but many times we'll de-energize the source to the substation. And as we lose that source, we'll activate temporary generation, typically diesel generators. We're also looking at waste vegetable oil generators and others, natural gas, for example. But for now, it's diesel. And what we're able to do is energize those distribution circuits that don't traverse the high fire threat areas. And then what we have are these sectionalizing devices which allow us to restrict the flow of electricity out into the wildland urban interface. And so a microgrid is essentially a very localized, very targeted, and a very safe polygon, if you will, that we're able to energize using those temporary diesel generators from the substation.
Thank you. Steve is asking, can you provide a link to maps where we can see what lines are being put underground?
Well, I can tell you, as far as I know, there's none in Nevada County at this time. I mean, there's projects under consideration, but
was the Lake of the Pines completed, or is that in progress? Or
it's, as far as I know, it's complete. I think it was completed last year.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it was basically between Combi and the development. I'd be happy to look into it, but that all of these undergrounding projects are driven by the county or the city. So it's not like PG&E says, oh, I think we'll underground this. You know, we are approached by the cities and counties, and they decide how they want to apply their Rule 20A credits, and then we support them in that effort. So it's really city and county driven.
Thank you. Steve, if that doesn't answer your question, you could unmute yourself. I'm going to go on to a question from Dick Menser. Can you briefly describe what takes place from assessment to shutdown through powering up again? I guess the process.
Sure. So we've made a commitment to communicate no later than 2 days before we expect an event. We're getting out in front of that. We have a forecast on our webpage, pge.com/weather, that shows a 7-day outlook for PSPS. So I guess that's what you're looking at in terms of the meteorological assessment, as we have people looking at this 24/7, 365, and the meteorological it's a difficult word, assessment is what drives that PSPS condition. And so it starts with the weather folks, and then we go into what we call a readiness posture, typically 3 to 5 days ahead of the projected north wind event. And then we continue to run weather models at regular intervals all the way up until the notifications are triggered to customers and local governments. So that's really how we arrive at the decision to de-energize, and it's all driven by the weather models. We have some of the best technology in weather modeling available, and some really highly skilled meteorologists that operate out of our weather facility in San Ramon. And so essentially we get the 48-hour, the 24-hour, and then the day of assessments from meteorology, and that's what triggers the decision to de-energize. We're communicating with customers and local governments throughout that process. And if we do see those conditions materializing on the modeling, we'll go ahead and shut down typically about 4 hours in advance of the expected impacts, because it does take some time. Some of the switching is manual, so we have to send a troubleman out to a pole to pull a fuse, and that type of thing. And so the extent or the duration of the actual PSPS event itself is largely driven by the weather. And so we have our meteorology department working throughout the event. They issue the weather all clear, let's say 12 to 18 hours after the start. That triggers our patrol process. And the process then begins that we have to go out and inspect every span of every circuit that was impacted by the shutoff, because the last thing we want to do is turn the power back on without inspecting everything and have it start a wildfire. And so that patrol process, especially in Nevada County and Sierra County especially, can be very challenging, just given the terrain, the access limitations and the like. We're able to do a lot of that with helicopter, which has allowed us to get a lot faster. But really, the patrol part is the most important. And we've made a commitment to do that within 12 hours of daylight. So I think you guys saw that in the last event. Sierra County, we actually had we had instances of damage that caused them to be out longer with the Labor Day event. And one thing I guess I will say is if folks are interested in what we're seeing during these PSPS events, you can go to cpuc.ca.gov/de-energization. I know it's kind of a long word. It's just like it sounds, de-energization. And that's where PG&E files our after action review, if you will. And that includes documentation about all the damage locations. And it's really interesting. I think a lot of folks would benefit from seeing this, because there are many, many instances documented where had we not de-energized, it would have likely resulted in a wildfire ignition. And that's not necessarily because of any fault of PG&E's. I mean, we have 150-foot trees that are 100 feet outside of our right-of-way. So it's just good information to have, especially for a group such as yours that's mindful of the wildfire risks.
Thank you. We have a question. Are we going to start to see the tech that Truckee and San Diego have to minimize shorts and other issues that may impact on fires?
So I'm thinking that question centers around automatic reclosing devices, or line savers. People have different names for them. We actually have deactivated all of our automated equipment within the high fire threat district during fire season. because we do not want to allow a line to be broken by vegetation or a drunk driver and then have that automated equipment try to re-energize that line when it's sitting in the duff on the forest floor. And so we've actually taken the proactive decision to deactivate the automated equipment in the highest risk areas. On the flip side of that, when it is engaged during winter, it greatly minimizes inconveniences of power outages during winter conditions. So it's kind of a dual-edged sword, but that's part of the overall wildfire safety program here, is that we're deactivating some of that automation because there are instances where humans are smarter than robots. So.
Okay, and our last question. Do you have an updated map of the microgrids?
I'm working on getting that, and I expect to have it soon, and that'll go to OES. And that would, I think they might have something around that now, but the work is being done now.
Whoops.
Now to produce essentially a external facing document.
So when OES gets that, maybe we can Paul can make that available. Thank you. And whoops, one last question, and then we'll have to move on. Under what circumstances should homeowners shut off natural gas or generators if there's a power shut off? Well, of course, people are running their generators if there's if the power shut off. So
yeah, I would say that if you're concerned about your natural gas service or the status of that service, you should call 1-800-PGE-5000 and request a gas service representative, a trained professional, to come out and do that for you.
Okay. Bob, let's go back to you and let's move on. Thank you very much, Brandon.
Thank you,
Brandon. We appreciate your time very much. Appreciate taking your time after hours to be with us, and it was a great program. Thank you very much. It certainly
thank you, Bob. Happy to come back. Happy to come back from time to time and chat with you all.
All right, we'll invite you. Okay, thanks, Brandon.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
And so it seems appropriate then, since we're talking about power shutoffs, as we tell you how to be safe and what to do during a power shutoff. So we've invited Greg Cameron to be a guest tonight, and he has a presentation about generators. So Greg, it's all yours.
All right, let me get the...
While Greg's gearing up here, I'll just let everybody know I saw Greg providing lots of excellent information on the Nextdoor neighbor forum online. And so I thought this is something that everybody needs to know. So we invited him to present tonight. Thank you, Greg. Go ahead.
You know, apparently I'm going to have to come back in because the new Mac OS isn't letting me share the screen until I quit out here. So
okay. Well, we'll sing and dance or something till you come back. Okay.
Just a reminder, the person asked a question about shutting off gas. The one time that we recommend you do that is during an evacuation. If you have to evacuate your home, remember, whether you're on natural gas or propane, you need to shut the gas off at the source. We recommend that you always have a, whoa, what's going on? You should always have a wrench hanging by your gas shutoff so that it's there for you to use. So you shut off your gas, but you always leave your electricity on and the lights on in your house when you evacuate so that your house is visible to safety personnel. And you leave your water on. You never turn your water off either. Okay. Well, Brandon.
Okay, I think we're here now.
There you are. Okay, Brandon, it's all yours. I mean, Greg, sorry.
All right, let's see, hang on here. My slideshow has jumped now. We're having all kinds of problems. Let's see. Seem to have lost my mouse. Great.
Well, hopefully you'll find it soon, or I'll have to tell a joke.
Yeah, hang on. I'm going to have to come out and come back in again.
Oh, that's too bad.
So, Bob, let me ask you, if we do turn off our natural gas when we evacuate, then don't we have to have PG&E come out to turn it back on again?
I would have to say yes to that.
Yeah.
Yes, you should, but you do need to turn it off when you evacuate. It's a safety issue. And yes, you should invite PG&E out to turn it on, or your propane gas provider to turn it back on, just to make sure everything is safe.
That
Okay,
does
are we
create,
live? We're working?
Yes.
May I ask
Okay.
a question?
Yes.
go ahead.
I'm the one that asked about turning off, I'm Charlie. My question really was, at what point does PG&E turn off the natural gas? In other words, if we are on a generator, they've turned off our electricity. When might they turn off our natural gas? Under what circumstances?
Well, that's probably a very good question. A friend of mine who used to work for the gas company turns it off when you don't pay your bill, but that's not what you're
I'm not
asking.
talking about that. I'm
Yeah,
talking
so
about in an emergency.
Yeah, we'll have to get back to PG&E and ask that question for you.
I've never heard of them doing that.
Yeah, in an earthquake situation, that when we lived in the Salinas Valley during the earthquake, there was a lot of issues with gas during an earthquake. But during a fire situation, I've not heard of that happening, but I think we need to get an official answer for you, and we'll post the answer to that on our website.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is a good question. I think if there's a risk of ruptured lines in an earthquake, but you don't have that quite the same risk in a fire.
Right.
Greg, are you back?
I'm back.
All right.
Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
We are.
So I'll try and get through this quickly since we're short on time here. So basic generator types and how to safely use them. All right, for consumers, we all are familiar now with the loud running small portable generators you hear all over town, and a lot of people are getting permanent home standby generators as well. Start with the big ones, the home standby generators. They can either power your entire house or part of the home, depending on what you need. Generally, they're automatic. They can power the entire household, like I said, or select circuits. Typically, they run on natural gas or propane, and they provide very clean, stable power similar to your utility, in our case, PG&E. They are generally professionally installed by a licensed electrician. In fact, even if you try and install these yourself, you still have to have an electrician do certain parts of it if you want it to be legal and up to code. They require much less user intervention compared to portable generators of any kind, but they're also very expensive to purchase and install. The generator may only cost you a couple $1,000s, but you can expect to spend 2, 3, 4 times that much to have it installed. That's where the real expense is in the installation, because they have to run wire, gas line. It all has to be done to code. Oftentimes you need a cement slab, and it depends on how far you need to keep it from your home as well, and also which fuel supply you're using. You may have to purchase propane tank or run a long gas line to the utility. Typically, they're more quiet than standard portable generators. They're connected to the home with an automatic transfer switch so that they automatically switch over to generator power when the power goes out. It's pretty seamless. They turn on when the power goes out, and they turn off when the power comes back on. A lot of the newer ones offer remote control capability with your phone even, or a separate remote control so you can shut them down and you go to sleep at night without having to go outside. And you can monitor status of how much juice they're using and if there are any problems. It'll all pop up on your phone. They're very safe to operate, generally speaking, because you don't have to have wires running all over the place. You don't have to deal with fuel, things like that. They're very self-contained and usually not, there are not issues with shock like there can be with a portable generator that you're manipulating yourself. All right, portable small generators. There are some different types to consider. The worksite generators, like the one in the picture there on the upper corner. Inverter generators, like the one down below there, the little Honda. And I'll explain the differences between these in a moment. Single fuel, typically gasoline that they'll run on. And then there's dual fuel types, which can run on either gasoline or propane. And they come in a wide variety of wattages and sizes, usually from 1,000 watts all the way up to maybe 15,000 watts. So you can get one that'll cover your needs. If you don't need a big one, you can get a smaller one, vice versa. So the different types of generators that are portable, the portable standard generator, as I call it, also known as a worksite generator, because they tend to use these a lot on construction sites. They're generally the least expensive. You see them at most hardware stores. They're usually very noisy. They're the noisiest type you can buy. They can be single or dual fuel. The larger ones that can supply 240 volts can power your well. Unfortunately, they're the worst quality of power, and they're not always safe for sensitive electronics. The voltage on them fluctuates a lot. The frequency that they operate at fluctuates a lot. The power is what a lot of people call dirty. It's very spiky. If you look at it on a what they call an oscilloscope that shows you the waveform that they produce, it is really pretty nasty. And it can damage sensitive electronics, depending on how bad the power is. And they're really intended to power tools at a construction site, which is generally fine for things like refrigerators and larger appliances. And old school TVs wasn't so much an issue. Nowadays, they can be more problematic, but most people seem to get away with using them without ill effect. Portable inverter generators, I consider them the best choice around. The power that comes out of it is very stable and clean, much closer to utility quality, safe for sensitive electronics, computers, charging your phones, things like that. They also tend to be much quieter than standard generators. And depending on whether they're open or closed frame, the closed frame ones, like the one in the picture, completely encase the engine in usually plastic, and they also have sound damping material in there. So they tend to be very quiet. They also tend to be the most efficient because they can vary their engine speed depending on how much stuff you have plugged into it. They can run at pretty much an idle if you're hardly drawing any juice from them. And then they can rev up if you start plugging in larger things like air conditioners and refrigerators and such. They tend to be more expensive than standard generators of the same wattage because you're paying for extra electronics and usually better quality engine as well. The closed frame versions, as I said before, are very quiet. And then the larger open frame models that they're still quieter than the standard ones because they can run at a lower engine speed are available with 240 volt capability for powering wells if you need them to. Okay, dual fuel. Argument for propane over gasoline. Gasoline is more hazardous to handle relative to propane. You're dealing with a flammable liquid that can spill. Propane cylinders are a lot easier to change and a lot safer for a generator compared to refilling a gas tank. I don't know if you've held a 5-gallon gas can over your generator trying to refill it, but it's very unpleasant and you usually do spill some fuel. Propane can also be stored indefinitely, whereas gas, if you store it for 6 months or longer, it will go bad. Propane won't sit in your generator in the off season and clog up your carburetor like gasoline will when it sits too long. It also doesn't foul your engine and spark plug nearly as much when you're running compared to gasoline. Also, propane exhaust is less toxic than gasoline. It's mostly water. There are some toxic elements in there and carbon monoxide, but overall it's got far less hydrocarbon emission, so it's better for the environment. Getting power into your house from the generator. Proper cords and connections are essential. whole or partial home standby generators take care of this for you because all the electrical conduit is installed by an electrician. It's permanent. It's just like the utility power coming in. You don't have to worry about running cords. For portable generators, the best option is the transfer switch installed by an electrician. And we'll get to that in just a second here. If you're using extension cords, they have to be the grounded 3-prong type. You don't want to use cheap 2-conductor extension cords going in your house from the generator. And you want them to be the correct wire gauge. You want them pretty thick and have heavy duty jacketing. And this is something a lot of people don't talk about. If there's potential for lightning, the generator needs to be earth grounded or it can conduct lightning into your home if there's a lightning strike nearby. Now the transfer switch I just spoke about, it disconnects the utility power from your house and switches over or transfers the generator power into your house. It provides a quick connection for your portable generator. It's usually one large, thick cord. You plug one end into the generator, the other end into the transfer switch, fire up your generator, and throw the switch. Transfer switch negates the need for extension cords running in your house because it's transferring the power directly into your house's circuits without the need to run cords through your open doors and windows. They can be expensive to install, and they have to be installed by a licensed electrician. On average, they probably cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000, $1,500, depending on the complexity. It can be less if it's a really simple job, but that's something to keep in mind. Now, as far as cords, using extension cords, they must be of adequate wire gauge for what you're plugging in. Best practice is to use 12 AWG, AWG standing for American Wire Gauge. They have that on the package when you go buy them at the hardware store. And the reason why is that 12 AWG cords, they can handle up to 20 amps, which is the maximum load that the circuit breaker on your outlet on the generator can handle before it pops. So the circuit breaker is going to pop before that extension cord can ever overheat and cause a fire. And along the same lines, using an undersized cord can cause fire. If you're using a really skinny little 16 gauge extension cord and you're plugging a refrigerator into it, it's going to get warm. And if that cord gets hot enough, it will eventually melt the jacketing and you'll have a fire. And lastly, the cord jacket has to be heavy duty. You want to get cords that are rated for outdoor use because you will be running the cords outdoor from the generator into the house. And the light duty jacketing, cheap cords, they can get hot and melt. And the jacketing is really easy to cut through if you're stepping on them with rocks underneath them and things like that. So good cords, very essential. You should never run your extension cords under carpets or mats. Basically, you can consider that kindling. You don't want to pinch them in doors or windows. If they get pinched hard enough, the internal copper wiring can eventually short and you have a fire. Cords, as I said before, they need to be 3-wire, the grounded type. So when you're plugging in your power strips, all the grounded outlets are safety grounded, and any appliances that you plug into them. Defeating the ground prong also on an appliance, going from a 3-prong to a 2-prong plug. A lot of people do that. Old houses with 2-prong outlets. It actually creates a fire and shock hazard when you do that. So you definitely don't want to do that with a generator. Okay, if the cords are going to be anywhere near water or moisture, they have to be plugged into a GFCI outlet. Those are the outlets you see in all modern homes, in the bathrooms and kitchens. They prevent electric shock very well. Most of the newer generators will already have these kind of outlets on them, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you have an older generator that doesn't, you can purchase an inline adapter, just like the one I have in the picture here, from your local hardware store. They're about 12 bucks. They can absolutely save your life. If a cord gets into a puddle and it's frayed somehow, if somebody steps in that puddle, they can be electrocuted if you don't have the cord plugged into a GFCI. And of course, don't use frayed or damaged cords. Get them out of your house. E-waste them. regardless if you're using them with a generator or not, you shouldn't have frayed cords. Carbon monoxide safety. Get a battery-powered carbon monoxide detector. They're cheap. They're all over Amazon. And I say battery-powered because obviously you may not have powered outlets in your house. A lot of people have carbon monoxide detectors built into their fire detectors, but if they run off of AC instead of batteries, they're not going to be powered. You want to have one that's independent of your generator, but you want to place it close to the wall where your generator is. All engines emit carbon monoxide, and it can leak into your home. I've had it happen with a generator on my home that was out on my deck. It seemed far enough away. Window was closed, but still somehow it was able to seep in. If I didn't have a carbon monoxide detector, I had no way to tell. You want to keep the generator a minimum of 10 feet from your home and away from open windows or doors. And point the exhaust away from your house. It's obvious where the exhaust is coming out on your generator. You want to point it away from the house. Anything you can do to mitigate those fumes. Carbon monoxide is odorless and colorless. Poisoning results in severe illness and possible death. It builds up in your bloodstream over time. So even if you're getting small doses and you're running your generator for several days, it builds up over time. It doesn't leave your bloodstream for a long time. It can build up over the course of several days and you can be poisoned. So, and I'm sure you've all heard stories of people being poisoned by carbon monoxide running their generators. Get the detector, it can save your life. Fuel safety. Okay, you want to store your gasoline away from your generator. More than 10 feet if you can. If your generator catches fire, and it does happen, if your gas container is sitting right next to it, it's probably going to catch fire too and explode. Never fill a running or hot generator with gasoline. Gas can and does spill easily onto a hot engine or exhaust system and ignite. Always shut the generator down and let it cool before adding gasoline. I know people don't like to be without their power for very long and they have to fill up their generator with gas, but it's essential to not fill the running engine or a hot engine. Every year there's fires from people doing that. If your generator is dual fuel, propane is much safer to use. You can swap the cylinders the same way you do on your barbecue. It's the same cylinder. You can get bigger ones too. It's safe and it's fast compared to pouring flammable hot liquid onto your hot machine. You can actually swap out your propane cylinders with the engine hot. It doesn't matter. It just takes a few seconds to detach that hose and switch over to a new cylinder and fire things back up. Never backfeed your generator into your house. It's illegal and very dangerous. Now, this is the practice. Some of you have probably heard of this. There have been articles about it recently in some of the newspapers during fire season. This is where you can actually connect your generator with an illegally made cord straight into the dryer plug in your laundry room, and then feed the energy back into your house that way out into all your circuits, because the dryer plug's connected to your breaker panel, and then it will feed the power out to the rest of your house. But it's extremely dangerous and it's illegal. Generator connected in this manner can backfeed into the utility power. It can actually get out to the electric lines. You can shock or electrocute utility workers that are on the pole that are actually trying to repair lines. You can feed that power into your neighbor's house. If they're not expecting it, it can create all kinds of hazards. The other hazard is that double male plug or cord that connects from the generator into the dryer plug of your laundry room, if it falls out of the wall or gets pulled out for some reason, those metal prongs are charged with electricity and they can shock somebody, or if it happens to fall against your metal dryer, it could start a fire from arcing. Okay, other considerations. Operating your generator during rain or snow. If you have to operate it in wet weather, it needs to be under some type of roof structure or canopy that will keep the water off of it. And of course, snow will melt if it piles up on there. Don't operate your generator in a puddle of water. It should be on as dry ground as possible. or even elevated if there's enough moisture and it has to run. If you've got some type of life support equipment and you can't be without the generator under these conditions, get it off the ground somehow. And obviously don't handle it with wet hands. That's a shock hazard. Touch a certain part of the generator, your feet are on the wet ground, you're going to get a shock or get electrocuted. Extension cords that are running through the wet outdoors on the ground, or even not on the ground, elevated, they need to be contiguous with no breaks. You don't want two extension cords plugged into each other in a wet area. If the water from the ground makes contact with the spliced area of the cord, you've definitely got chance for electric shock. There's enough salt in the ground to really form a good conductor and electrify the area around the cord. Okay, generator maintenance, we'll keep it basic. Home standby generators are supposed to be exercised at least once a month, depending on manufacturer's recommendations. It ensures the thing will start when it's supposed to, and it also keeps the engine parts lubricated. A lot of standby generators nowadays, they automatically do this. You don't have to think about it. They'll fire up at whatever interval the technician set them to when the unit was installed. Your portable generator, when it's not being stored, should also be manually exercised. You should fire it up during fire season, at least once a month, make sure it's going to start. And then lastly, every 4 months or so, when you're exercising your generator, you should actually run it under load, where you've actually got stuff plugged into it. And that makes sure that the actual alternator unit inside the generator gets warm and purges any moisture that's in there. It also makes sure that the thing isn't going to conk out on you or not provide the correct electricity when it's most critical. Generators, like any air-cooled small engine machine, they require frequent maintenance. And the portable ones can require even more maintenance in terms of checking things like oil and air filter and such. The oil level on all generators has to be checked often. Most manuals say check it every time you go to use it. And the oil needs to be changed every 100 hours or so of use on almost every type of generator. Standby generators have oil filters, and those usually need to be replaced every 200 hours. And air cleaners need to be checked and cleaned and replaced periodically according to owner's manual. So this is stuff just like your car. Choose a generator brand that has local service if possible. I know Generac, as far as the big standby generators, they're really popular up here. I prefer Kohler. Not as many techs that service it, but I find them to be more reliable, so hopefully you'll need less service calls. As far as the regular maintenance, oil changes and filters and such, there are service technicians, the same guys who install these generators. They can come out and do the regular maintenance for you if you're not a self-starter as far as maintenance go. And then the small portable generators, a lot of times you have to bring them into a repair shop like Pearson's in Grass Valley to have the work done. If you can find someone to come out and work on your portable generator, that's great. I see people asking all the time, but I don't think on-site techs are readily available for portable generators. Generator storage, very important if you want your generator to start when you take it out next season. Home standby generators, technically they're kind of in storage all the time, which is why you have to exercise them. And that's usually the maintenance and upkeep you need to do with them, since you're not physically putting them away every season. Portable gasoline generators put into storage need to have all the fuel removed from the gas tank and the carburetor. Failure to get that fuel out of there will likely result in a plugged up carburetor. The gas that sits in your carburetor too long will eventually get gummy and it'll plug up the main jet, which is basically the little thing that vaporizes the fuel so the engine can actually burn it. The storage procedure generally involves adding a fuel stabilizer, which makes your gas last longer than it would if you just stored it without a stabilizer. It prevents it from gumming up and breaking down as quickly. So you fill up the tank with the stabilizer. In fact, you should always use fuel stabilizer in your gas can, in my opinions, because you don't know if you're going to be storing it or not. But once the fuel stabilizer's in there, you want to run the tank completely until the dry until the engine stops, because then you know you sucked out most of the fuel from the carburetor too. It's not 100% guarantee though it's going to work. I've still had carburetors foul up even after running them dry, but more often than not, you will be able to start your generator up next season when you need it. Dual fuel generators, big reason to use propane instead of gasoline is that you don't have to drain any fuel at the end of the season. You can just put your generator away if you've never run anything in it but propane. Generators should be stored in a dry place, preferably your garage or shed. And if your generator has an electric starter, that means it's got a battery in it. You want to put a trickle charger on that battery. A lot of the newer inverter generators, they ship with a battery. They also give you a little trickle charger with them too. I have a Champion. It's a little wall wart. You just plug it in your garage. It'll keep your battery charged and keep it from going bad from year to year. And of course, be sure to follow the storage guidelines outlined in your generator's owner's manual. They're all a little bit different, but the differences are pretty minuscule. Okay, questions? I know we're over time. You guys can always email me too, and I am going to post a link to this. I have a PDF version of this slideshow. It actually has some more slides because I cut this down. It was actually longer before, but give you some more advice on things like storage and safety.
You can just send the link to me, Greg, and then we'll post it on our website so that people can see it. We'll do that for everybody. So
all right.
I don't think we have any questions. I think that's a sign of a good instructor. So
I hope so.
yeah. No, I appreciate it very much. So anyway, yeah, so thank you very much. Every year we hear of people who just, I mean, they forget that a generator runs on both gasoline and oil, and they find their engines seizing up when they most want the generator to be working. One thing that was pointed out on the chat, and I'll go ahead and mention it, the reason that you asked PG&E to come out to turn your gas back on for you is some devices have a pilot light, and not all pilot lights have a safety device on them, so that they'll run gas continuously when gas is being provided to the house. Consequently, there's quite a safety hazard if you go in there and try to light that pilot light and you haven't purged it first or managed to evacuate the air. A lot of homeowners know how to do this, but the advice that we have to give is that you must call PG&E to relight, to turn your gas back on in order to ensure safety. Anyway, so Susan, do you see any questions? I didn't see any. If you have a whole house, let's see, there's a question other than great job. Whoops, it moved. If you have where'd it go? If you have a whole house generator, can you turn it off at night during PSPS?
Well, I do, because it's very, it's very close to my neighbor's bedroom window, about 30 feet. So at about midnight, I do shut off my whole house generator.
Yeah, and and obviously the same thing can be done with portable generators. Refrigerators, freezers cycle. They're not demanding electricity continuously, and so you don't have to run your generator continuously. You can run it in cycles to preserve fuel and to conserve and to minimize the noise in a neighborhood.
As far as the noise, I will tell you about, there's a company called Zombie Box that actually makes an external case to go over both portable and whole house backup generators that reduces the noise level down to outdoor air conditioning unit. Makes them very quiet.
Wow.
They're about $1,000, but for people who get complaints from their neighbors, it might be well worth it. I'll put the website on the chat.
And the better generators that are out there, of course, they're also the most expensive generators. They are relatively quiet and don't present such a nuisance in the neighborhood. Okay, I think that's it. So I thank you all for joining us tonight. I thank our presenters. Thanks Greg for joining us and Brandon for PG&E. And as always, Caleb, thank you very, very much for taking your time to be with us. And thank you to the county for offering the use of their Zoom account. We certainly couldn't do it otherwise. Thank you to our other presenters. Remember, everybody, get your go bag ready, find those evacuation tags, be sure your neighbors are all signed up for Code Red, and we'll see you in November. So thank you very much.